Gremlins Incorporated is a digital board game from Charlie Oscar Lima Tango Interactive Entertainment. It's quite a mouthful. It's a game they made that came out a couple weeks ago. They provided a key for us to take a look at the game, so I went ahead and I did a preview, played about 6 multiplayer matches, and I wanted to give you guys my thoughts. So let's move on into some details here. I think that the art design and presentation are really great. The theme music from the intro is incredibly catchy. I actually took notice of the music in a video game. I like it that much. It's got like a smooth jazz kind of goblins doing a little acapella beat kind of track. It's really cool. Besides that, there's no real in-game music, so it doesn't get in the way, which I think is important for a turn-based game because you don't really want something really repetitive playing over and over again when you're in a match for like an hour. The UI is cleanly laid out. I never had any trouble accessing information. It's really smooth. You know, you highlight a card, it tells you where you can move. Interface design is pretty great. It's very smooth and pretty intuitive. There's no reason to have any qualms with any of the presentational aspects. It's got a great art style that suits the world just perfectly. Kind of a hand-drawn, slightly sepia tone kind of world, which is just perfect for, you know, a bunch of capitalistic gremlins going after each other. Sliding on into gameplay here, I think the tutorials are great and get you up to speed quickly. The teacher's pretty funny and the mechanics don't take a long time to get a handle on, so you'll be up and running in no time. There's a limited single player mode with challenges and playing against AI as well as multiplayer, which is a quick note here that the game does require an always-on internet connection. All the AI decision making is calculated server side. Developer says they're going to release an offline mode later this year. I played about 6 or 7 games of online multiplayer, never had any server issues, never had any disconnects, never had any real problems in that area, so that seems to be working pretty well. Let's see, the game benefits a great deal from being a digital representation of an actual board game. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, but I don't think they're really needed, so there's not a huge amount of animations and things like that, but what there is, I think, is good because it keeps the information you want in the front. You have a few resources, a hand of cards, and you have a main board. Spaces in the board have various effects, and if you like the chaotic sort of take that or gotcha type of board games, you'll feel right at home playing this one. I think the board is very cleverly designed to work well with the card deck, and one example I wanted to point out, there's 2 main spaces where you get big numbers of victory points. They're at the top and bottom of the left. And as you see, the one at the top has a whole path of bribery spaces on it, and it causes you to lose a lot of money trying to get there. And the other's the factory where you need to spend money to build the contraptions that grant you victory points. So these 2 big sort of victory point granting cards happen at these different locations, and you have to think about the trade-offs and resources you're going to make to get to each one. I think that's pretty clever. You kind of have a choice of which path you want to pursue. The other spaces give victory points too, but I feel like these are the main sort of payout spots. The whole layout of the board lends itself to some pretty interesting tactics about how to use the cards in your hand and plot a path around it to various spaces trying to maximize your potential. You'll work with that hand of cards, deciding which ones to discard for movement and which ones to save in order to execute your plans. Sometimes those choices can get pretty tough. In the multiplayer mode that I played, it was a race to 15 victory points, so speed and getting around matters, and many of the best movement cards are also the ones that you can use to get the most victory points. It's an interesting trade-off. In addition, there are plenty of bad stuff spaces on the board, so you're always thinking about how to get around while still keeping the cards you want to use later available. Overall, I think there's a lot to like in this game. The presentation is really great, and I didn't encounter any bugs or connectivity issues or anything like that, so for what it is, it functions perfectly. Unfortunately, it just didn't click with me personally. It's incredibly thematic for a capitalistic Gremlins game to have a lot of take that or gotcha mechanics, but I kind of find they artificially lengthen the game and they make planning incredibly difficult. It's very possible that I'm wrong on this one, and maybe a better grasp of the total cards in the deck would go a long way towards formulating better strategy, but I'm just not invested enough to put the work in. Looking at the leaderboards, the highest players have a win rate of 50%, so I don't think I'm too far off the mark with that evaluation. I would really love this game at home on my board game table with a group of my close friends, but online, it just doesn't function that well for me. The time between turns takes a long time, there's a lot of downtime, and I'm playing with strangers, so there's no real sort of meat behind the gotcha mechanics. I'm often just playing the harmful cards against the current leader or another player at random, and the game kind of has a chance to have a problem with king making. I would highly recommend playing this game with a group of your friends instead of with strangers online. The gotcha mechanics don't really shine, you know, in the online scenario, and there's not enough depth for me to spend my opponent's turns trying to contemplate my next move. And then considering that all the best laid plans can be shattered by your opponent's next turn, there's kind of a lack of permanence to your clever strategy. This leads me to the overall conclusion: there's just a touch too much randomness in this game for my taste. None of your resources are safe, so you can never be entirely sure that your game-winning move is going to do exactly that. There are board games out there that are played for their deep strategy, and board games that are just all-around fun. I think that Gremlins Inc. is almost certainly one of the just all-around fun variety, but those shine the most with your friends when you're all laughing, not when you're playing against cold, calculating digital strangers. But if that sounds like your cup of tea, you've got a pretty good experience here, and it just didn't exactly work out for me. This has been Sam with Select Characters. See you next time.